Hello everybody, today I can find the midpoint of a line segment using the midpoint formula, which is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2, and we're going to also find the endpoint of a line segment given the midpoint by counting on the graph. I'm actually going to show you two different ways to do midpoint, both using the formula and using the graph, but I believe it's a little bit easier to do it using the formula. But when you are given the midpoint, I definitely think it's easier to use the graph. So let's take a look at this first example here. 5, comma 1 and 7, comma 5. So the midpoint is the point that's directly in the middle of the two endpoints. So if I'm going to do this graphically, well, if it's 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 to get from one point to the other, then I would kind of do half of that. Instead of going 2 over, I would go 1 over, and instead of going 4 up, I would go 2 up, and this would be my point. Now, to find a value directly in between two other values, that's called the average. And to find the average of two numbers, we add them up and we divide by 2. So that's where the midpoint formula comes from. The midpoint formula is the average of the x values, comma, the average of the y values. So the average of the x values is x1 plus x2 over 2, and the y values is y1 plus y2 over 2. So in this example, the two x values are 5 and 7, and the two y values are 1 and 5. 5 plus 7 is 12 over 2. 1 plus 5 is 6 over 2. The midpoint is 6, comma 3. And again, that's the same point that I got doing it graphically. Here's a third way of thinking about it. What number is directly between 5 and 7? 6 is directly between 5 and 7. What number is directly between 1 and 5? 3 is directly between 1 and 5. So you have a few different options, but what I want your go-to to be is the midpoint formula, which is the average of the x values, comma, the average of the y values, x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. So now we did a lot of talking. Let's try the next example. Let's use a different color. Actually, I think I need to probably make it bigger because it's so little. 9, 1, and 1, negative 5. 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 1. And 1, negative 5. Now, again, we don't need the graph for this, but it's helpful to kind of visualize it. Midpoint is the average of the x values, x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, the average of the y values, y1 plus y2 over 2. So when I add the x's, 9 plus 1 over 2, and when I add the y's, 1 plus negative 5 over 2. I do the math, I do the arithmetic. 10 over 2 is 5, negative 4 over 2 is negative 2. And does that look right? It sure does. It looks right in the middle. All right, number 3. 2, 5, and negative 2, 7. Again, I don't have to graph it, but it might be a little bit easier. So my midpoint is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. These are my x's, these are my y's. I want you to try it on your own from here. So I will just kind of give you 15 seconds or so to give it a try, and then I will go over it. Okay, my x's are 2 plus negative 2. My y's are 5 plus 7. That gives me 0 over 2, 12 over 2, 0, comma 6, 0, comma 6. Does that look right? Yes, it does. 0, 6 is my answer. I want you to try number 4 completely on your own. So please pause, try number 4 on your own, and then unpause. Okay, now that you tried number 4 on your own, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, comma 0, 3, comma 2. Again, I don't have to use the graph for this, but I like to, so I can just double check myself. x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. So my x's are 3 and 9. My y's are 2 and 0. That gives me 12 over 2 and 2 over 2, which is 6, comma 1. Does that look correct? Yes. Is there one more I want to go over with you? Why don't you try number 6 on your own? The only little twist here is that you may end up with a decimal. If you do get a decimal, the only decimal it could possibly be would be a 0.5. That will happen here. So why don't you take a moment, try number 6 on your own. So pause it, try number 6 on your own, unpause. Okay, now you try number 6 on your own. Your midpoint is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. So for the x's, it's 10 plus 2 over 2. For the y's, it's negative 1 plus 4 over 2. I do the arithmetic, and I get 6, comma 1.5. And if I look at it on the graph, 10, negative 1, 2, 4. So if you're doing this graphically, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, half of 5 would be 2.5. 1, 2.5. I end up there, and that is 6, comma 1.5. All right, so to find the midpoint, given the endpoints, I use my midpoint formula, which is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. Now we're going to look at the bottom piece here, finding an endpoint when you're given a midpoint. So that is number 13. The midpoint of a line segment is 2, comma 3. Now I suggest you label it with an M, so it's a little bit more clear to see what's going on. One endpoint is 0, 0. What is the other endpoint? Well, understand that the midpoint must be in the middle of the two endpoints. So if the midpoint is here, if this is the middle, the other endpoint's got to be somewhere over here. So now let's be more precise. And again, if it's not over there, then the M would not be in the middle. How do I get from the endpoint to the midpoint? Well, from here to here, it's right 2, up 3. So go another right 2, up 3. That is 4, comma 6. That is your answer. Let's do another one. The midpoint of AB is 2, comma negative 1. So make sure you label the midpoint with an M, just so it's more clear what's what. A is negative 1, 1. What are the coordinates of B? Well, since M has to be in the middle, B needs to be somewhere over there. So precisely where is it going to be? Well, how do I get from A to M? I would go 1, 2, 3 to the right and 2 down. So go another 1, 2, 3 to the right and 2 down. That's B. That's 5, comma 3. It looks right. It is right. That's all there is to it. You're just going to count on the graph from one endpoint to the midpoint, and then do the same thing to get to the other endpoint. The midpoint of xy is 8, negative 6, 2, 4, 6, 8, negative 2, 4, negative 6. That's the midpoint. The coordinates of x are 6, negative 9, 6, negative 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And it's asking for y. Well, since m has to be in the middle, that means that the other endpoint needs to be somewhere over there. So I want you to try and figure out exactly where it is going to be from here. So I'm not going to pause it, just take about 15 seconds and try to find that other endpoint and state the coordinates. Okay, so to get from the endpoint to the midpoint, it's right 2, up 3. So go another right 2, up 3. That's y. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, comma, negative 3. Why don't you try number 16 right now, completely on your own? So please pause, try 16 on your own, and then unpause. Now that you tried number 16 on your own, negative 2, 4, negative 7, 3. That's the midpoint. Q is negative 10, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And it's asking for T. Well, since M has to be in the middle, that means that the other endpoint's got to be somewhere down there. So I count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is T. That is negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 3. So to find an endpoint, given the midpoint, we put them on the graph and we count. Whatever we do to get from one endpoint to the midpoint, I do the same thing to get from the midpoint to the other endpoint. And no matter which direction you're going, make sure that your M, your midpoint, is always in between the other two. So again, we talked about two little rules, obviously very much related, both related to midpoint. If you're asked to find the midpoint, you are going to use midpoint formula, x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. If they give you the midpoint and they want an endpoint, I'm going to use a graph, I'm going to plot everything, and I'm going to count from the endpoint to the midpoint and do the same thing to find the second endpoint. Your classwork/homework is to finish midpoint, and I hope everybody has a great day.